Okay, today I want to talk about cultivating a peaceful home. Not because my home is always peaceful, because it is not always peaceful, but because when I do these tips that I'm going to be sharing today, they really alleviate a lot of the stress and the lack of peace in our home. And when I don't do these tips, my home is definitely not very peaceful, and my mind's not very peaceful, therefore my family is not very peaceful. So, as a Christian wife and mother, one of my goals for my home is to have it be a peaceful environment. Especially with everything going on in the world right now, there's so much conflict and lack of peace that my ideal home would be a place where my husband feels like he can come after a long day at work, or people feel like they can come over and they experience peace rather than unrest. So that is my ultimate goal. That is not always accomplished for sure. Come over in the evening right now and you'll see. But when I apply these things, there is a massive difference and our home becomes a much more restful and peaceful place. And when my home is restful and peaceful, it's a place I want to be. When my home is really chaotic, it's a place I want to escape from. And so my goal as a homemaker, as a stay-at-home mom, is to make my home a place I actually want to be at the end of the day. And so these things for myself and for our family have been very critical and very helpful with our house just feeling much more peaceful. To get started, if I'm moving around a little bit, I'm holding Cassie. She's sleeping right now, and that is why. But I have some notes, and the first thing I want to talk about is being proactive. When I was thinking about what are some things that when I apply them, our home just runs so much better and feels so much more peaceful, being proactive was one of the biggest things that instantly came to my mind. So my Sarah definition of proactivity or being proactive is anticipating a need before that need actually arises. And I found that this is so critically key with my home being more peaceful. So these are just a few examples I thought of right off the top of my head of how I try to be proactive. And when I do these things, things just go so much more smoothly and the house is so much more peaceful. So just a simple one, if I'm leaving the house during the week especially, this doesn't apply so much on Sunday mornings when we're just trying to get out of the house really quick, but if I'm headed over, let's say, to the remodel for an afternoon with the kids and my husband, I try to spend 5 to maybe 15 minutes picking up the house before I leave. And I've just found that when I come back and the kids are kind of fussy in the evening and I have to do dinner and I come home to a house that's fairly picked up and cleaned up, the evening just goes so much more smoothly versus when I come home and the house is a total wreck, plus I have to make dinner, plus the kids are really fussy, because at the end of the day, that's just how things are going right now. And so I found that to be really, really helpful, and it's a way that I'm proactive and our house is just much more peaceful. Another thing that's really helpful is just making sure that I have meat set out to thaw before it's time to cook with that meat for dinner. I found that to be really helpful. Another thing I thought of that my mom did growing up that I think was so smart is Sunday morning she would always put in like a roast and potatoes and carrots in a crock pot, and then when we would get home from church, lunch was right there. And I know it cut down a lot on the temptation to always eat out because we were all fussy and hungry, and that would just be really convenient because we knew that there would be food right when we got home. And so I think that was super smart of my mom to do that, and it just alleviated a bit more of that stress and let the house be a bit more functional when you get home from church. Another thing I found really helpful, apparently we're on a church roll here, is that I try to always set out the girls' clothes and my clothes for church the night before. Because if you are anything like me, I'm a very indecisive church dresser, I guess is what I would call it. And so Sunday morning comes around, and if I have not set out the night before what I'm going to wear, I try on like 100 different outfits and I don't like anything and nothing's working, and then last minute I throw in something I really don't like and we leave for church and we're late. So I found that just setting out the clothes the day before, it gives me plenty of time to make sure I have things clean that I want to wear. It makes me make sure that the girls have nice outfits put together. It's just really, really helpful. I also like to restock the diaper bag Saturday so that I don't have to do that Sunday morning, and I've just found that Sunday mornings are way more smooth. Another thing that I thought of about being proactive is proactive child training. And so I actually sat down this last week because I feel like I have not really done a super great job in my child training lately. And I wrote out 5 things I really want to focus on this next year with Carrie that I know will just make our house so much more peaceful, but will also take out a lot of the stress that sometimes I experience at other people's houses with Carrie, like her not sitting still in a high chair or her not obeying the first time when I asked her to do something. And I realized so much of that is my own fault. Doing proactive child training, or child training just in general, I think is honestly one of the biggest things with having a peaceful home, and something I definitely am not pro at, but I want to get better at this next year, because I want my children to be a joy to be around. I want it to be peaceful when we go to other people's house. I want our house to be peaceful ourselves. And so that's another thing that I want to work on this next year. So those are just some examples of being proactive, and I think that's, like I mentioned, the biggest thing that I found is so helpful with having a more peaceful home environment. And so I try and be proactive with everything. Obviously, you can't plan out every intricate detail of your life. Things come up and you just have to leave the house a mess, or you don't have dinner prepped, or whatever it is. But in general, when I do these things, it really, really helps. So the second P in having a peaceful home after being proactive that I have found so helpful is planning. And so I've gotten where I pretty much plan out my entire life. Sorry, my baby's waking up. So I have found that by planning out my year, you know, it's almost 2022, by having kind of some big goals I want to work on, and then figuring out how I can break them down into weekly goals and then into daily routines and habits. That's really helpful, so I have a direction, something I'm aiming towards. I plan out my week. I know I talk about this in like every other video, but the reason why is it's just been really, really helpful with feeling less stressed and more prepared and more peaceful. And that is that every Sunday evening I write out kind of an exact list of what's happening the next week as far as I'm aware, and it just helps with me anticipating what's going on, once again being proactive, with me kind of having a general game plan for the week. It's just really helpful. I've also found it really helpful with the planning to sit down with my husband. We don't do this every week, but we're trying to get better at it. Sit down with him in the evening and kind of talk about like, okay, what's our plans for this next week? What are you doing? What does this look like? And I found that to be really, really helpful with our house being more peaceful as well. So besides the yearly goals, and then almost monthly goals, and then also weekly goals, and then finally breaking it down into daily to-do lists, I found that that alleviates a lot of extra stress and gives me kind of a compass with which I can navigate my life, and things just go much more smoothly and much more peacefully. Okay, the last P that I want to talk about in cultivating a peaceful home is sometimes peace is better than perfection. And what I mean by that is that there are a lot of verses in Proverbs that I think can apply so well to how to have a peaceful home. A verse that I really like in Proverbs says something like, "It is better to have a dinner of herbs where love is than a fatted calf with hatred." Another verse that I really like is that it is better to dwell on the corner of a rooftop than in a house with a contentious woman. I also think it applies to contentious men for sure. But I remember once my husband telling me something to the effect of, I would rather come home to a more simple meal but you not be stressed out than to come home to a really nice meal but the kids are falling apart and you're super stressed. And I fall into this trap so often of, I really want the nice clean house. I really want the really nice dinner for my husband. But in the process of trying to do that, I kind of lose control of the kids. You know, Cassie has a meltdown. Maybe I'm disappointed because the kids messed up the table that looked really nice. And so by the time my husband comes home, I'm really stressed out and frustrated, rather than maybe taking a simpler route, but being cheerful when my husband gets home, or having the kids be in a good mood when my husband gets home. And so that's the next thing. Sometimes peace is better than perfection, for sure. I did think of a couple other things that are extremely random that I found really helpful with just having a more peaceful home. And that is, if I get up in the morning and I get dressed and I feel put together, I put on a little bit of makeup, I do my hair, I instantly feel just much more peaceful and ready to have a successful day, versus if I go around my entire day not well dressed in some outfit that I feel really grungy in. I just find I don't get as much done. So that's another really random tip, but it's been really helpful for me and I noticed a difference instantly. So I hope those maybe gave you some ideas These have just been things that for myself have been so key in just feeling like our home is a more peaceful place, feeling like things are more planned out, feeling like I'm not having to so much fly by the seat of my pants, but I have a general idea of what's going on and how to anticipate needs and how to try to cut corners as much of it as possible by being able to cut out some of those situations that can be really stressful if I haven't planned ahead and been proactive. So, I love you all so much. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you had a very Merry Christmas and have a Happy New Year, and I will see you all hopefully next weekend. So, bye you guys. Cassie says goodbye as well. Look at her. Goodbye. See you all next week.